6:30, God, I hate that sound. Ain't got time to snooze, I put my feet on the ground and I head to the shower then.
Wake up and see the light. You got a feeling that you're trying to fight. Step aside and let the world take over. You feel pain, you feel passion. Would start a fight just for distraction. If it meant all these emotions would subside. So let it go. You're not alone tonight. Let it go. How about a penny for your thoughts and time? Come on, just open your eyes. You might be feeling like you're falling behind. Step aside and leave your problems behind. Say, you feel love, you feel hatred. Would put a fist through the pavement if it meant all these emotions would subside. So let it go. You're not alone tonight. Let it go. How about a penny for your thoughts and time? You can't bottle up a feeling and just set it to the side. So let it go and ease your mind. Nobody said life would be easy. Nobody said things would be fine. But nobody asked if it was easy for you to go and close your eyes. It's gonna be alright. 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 Alright. So let it go. You're not alone tonight. Let it go. Take control of this precious life. You can't bottle up a feeling and just set it to the side. So let it go. Take control of this precious life.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to the Vanguard. For Spike the Salmon Eater Cohen, I am Matt Wright, and together we are traversing the muddied waters of freedom. Let me finish turning that
Hey.
down. Hi.
I actually ate salmon, so that's appropriate.
Well, you always eat salmon. Like, I don't think you
I ate a lot of salmon.
You don't eat anything else but salmon.
I rarely eat non-salmon type foods.
That's very true. Wow, there was a lot going on right there.
There was a lot going on. All of it mostly just failure. We're still catching up with you, our viewing audience, who's watching us, and we are almost where you are.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Woo. It's not even up on one of my computers yet. I don't know why it's not even up on this computer.
It's on Facebook.
Right.
It's on YouTube, and it is on Periscope.
Okay.
And I've shared it as Jason. So
Excellent.
It's happening.
Now. It's happening the way that it's supposed to be happening. Good.
It's happening in a way.
Right.
Which is what we're going to deal with. Hey, everyone. Welcome to this episode number
94.
94. There's no particular reason I needed to know that.
It just means we are 6 away from 100.
Yes.
6 away from...
Please ignore my typing.
Okay. First and foremost,
Doesn't matter.
Allow me to thank Grassroots Kava House for the kava that I drank on this and every episode, essentially every episode, of the Muddied Waters of Freedom.
And allow me to thank Kroger for this delicious, purified drinking water from the reverse osmosis that comes from Kroger, Bulavanaka. There's nothing like washing salmon down with Kroger.
With Kroger drinking water. Man, played the wrong song at the beginning. I'm like going...
We were nailing it. We
were crushing it today. Yeah. It's been a freaking it's been a week. It's been a week. It's Tuesday, but it's been a week.
It's been an exciting week though, guys. So listen, we grew by 33. I should have done the math before this, but we grew by almost 20%, right?
Well,
or
we grew by 33% in staff. And we grew by... Nice. Oh, are you talking about like our page?
Yeah, I mean,
I thought you meant
people following us, not our. We grew by 33.3333333333334% over the week with the addition of Jason Lyon, Mr. America, the Bearded Truth. But we, more importantly, in this moment, or I guess equally importantly, we grew by over 1,000 likes on our Facebook, and we have just been exploding in popularity all over, and are getting record numbers of viewers for each show.
We have grown in single-digit likes on YouTube.
Yes, which is about roughly the same percentage in growth.
Right.
So we're hitting on all cylinders. Yeah. Another interesting factoid: we had a reach last month of 1.3 million.
1.6 if you check today.
6 million.
1.6 million.
A reach of 6 million.
No.
Nope. I'm going with 6 million because it's close enough.
Right.
And if you disagree with that, it's possible anti-Semitism. So our reach has grown quite a bit. No, 1.6 million, which is, what is that? Like there are 11 states whose population is less than our reach for this last
That's
month.
Right. Our reach has been
a big deal.
Our reach has been insane for a page as small as ours. I mean, literally before last week it was me and you.
Yeah.
So like for a page as small as ours, to get that kind of reach without paying a dime in advertising.
Yeah, our reach is crazy. And this isn't even humble bragging. We're just bragging.
Right. And
like this is just bragging.
And in all honesty, the only reason the reach is as good as it is because of viewers and listeners like yourselves.
Of course, exactly. This is entirely because of you guys, viewers like you,
right?
And the Russian government.
Of course, the
Russian government. We can thank them,
right?
Nostrovia, I think.
Nostrovia, yeah, Nostrovia.
Nostrovia. But yeah, no, we are Guys, I'm just still adding stuff to our stream because that is how well this has gone.
Right.
That is how well this episode has gone.
Yeah, we've been crushing it today.
We've been crushing is a good way to describe what we've been doing.
Yes.
Yes. So now, hey, welcome to episode 94, everyone.
Damn right. 94 is starting finally.
Right now. This is the beginning of episode. All this stuff before, that was just a warm up. That's patron only content that you guys got for some reason. Moving forward, episode 94. We thank the drink people, right?
Yeah, we did thank the drink people.
Bulavanaka. Hey guys, this is a special day in the internet. I have been on Facebook for 7 years today.
And
this day.
And oddly enough, he's been in Facebook jail for 3.5 years of those.
Yes. Very close to that, yes. Right. Way too long I've been in Facebook jail. But even when I'm in Facebook jail, I have some people that keep me abreast of what's going on, and they get my notes out to the outside. So really, I've been pretty much on here for 7 years, even those times. So this is a big deal. And I want you to think for a moment about a spikeless internet and what that would look like to you.
And for me, since our entire relationship has been over the internet,
just be like a spikeless existence.
It would be a spikeless existence, and nobody wants to see me with a spikeless existence.
No one wants that.
No.
That's ugly. That's an ugly thing. Frank Eggett says, "What's happening?
What's going on, Frank?
We don't know."
Frank is a great guy, wonderful friend of mine. Funny little guy who is really political but swears that he's not. He gets very much into the politics. He's like he's very much abreast of everything going on, but then he'll like go into these long rants, and then he goes, "But I just don't care anymore."
Right. That's me pretending not to be political in front of friends and loved ones. They're like, "What are your politics?" I'm like, "I don't know. I guess I'm kind of like whatever." And then they'll keep, they'll like keep. Well, you're not a Trump supporter, are you? I'm like, "Nope." They'll be like, "Well, so then you like Alexandria?" I'm like, "Nope."
Nope.
And at some point I'll say, "Hey, listen, there's one of two ways this is gonna go. I can just say I'm whatever, and we can talk about something else, or you're gonna be about to drill into some serious philosophical underpinnings, and it's going to take an impressive amount of your evening. And I don't think either of us wants that. And most of the time, you wouldn't think so, but most of the time they want to hear it.
Yeah.
And I would say half the time they regret it, but I don't know. I haven't really polled them afterward. I haven't done a lot of exit polling. So
one of my buddies is in town, Andrew Quintana, and he's in town, and
is that how you say his name?
That's how I say his name. I don't
Quintana?
know. Quintana. But I met up with him earlier at Grassroots Kava House in downtown St. Pete, and he was like, "Hey, let's go get lunch." And I was like, "Great, where do you want to go?" And he goes, "Do you want to go to Ruth's Chris?" And I said, "No." I run a podcast for a living.
That's a date,
right? And
that's a date with an important lady.
I mean, I've never dated somebody that important.
That's what I mean. Right. Are you paying? If you're paying, yes.
And so then he said, "No, they have this fantastic happy hour where if you sit in the bar, like all the stuff's like $9." And I was like, "I don't believe you." And so we went, and we had, and like there was like 4 of us that went. That turned into a party of 6 of us. And he introduced me to everybody as, "This is Matt. He has a podcast." And so I'm talking with...
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I'm talking with this very lovely girl that he introduced me to, whose name I'm blanking on right now because I fried it doing all of this beforehand, trying to make sure it was all working. And
yeah, I don't remember anything
that
happened before today.
No. Before the show started, like I'm lucky I remember this story. But...
Yep.
She was like, "Oh, yeah, what's the podcast on?" I was like, "Oh, well, politics." And she goes, "Oh, anything in particular?" And I was like, "Here are the notes. You can just read the notes."
Just read the notes.
Just read the notes for today. And she's reading them, and she goes, "What do you think about Tulsi Gabbard?" And I said, "Well, I really like her anti-war stance." And that's about where that ends.
Yep.
And she goes, "I agree with that." And I was like, got the hook on. Got the hook on. Gonna slowly
Tuesdays at 8.
Yeah, Tuesdays at 8. And she goes, "Do you guys have a YouTube channel?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Are you guys anything like that guy? I think his name's Alexander. I said, "Jones?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, No.
At times.
It depends.
At times. We have moments.
We have these moments. And but yeah, she actually started following us on YouTube. So
nice.
Yeah.
Our YouTube subscription has been a slog. And like as easily as we've been growing our Facebook viewership, that is how hard it has been to grow our YouTube. So if we have to go to Ruth's Chris every week and troll the happy hour to get people one at a time, may be what it takes. It's been more successful than anything else we've tried, so I can't knock it.
Right. I mean, and you know what? So, for the $9 steak sandwich that I had, worth it.
Right? I mean, it is. So wait, so it really was only $9?
Yeah. Yeah, it was really. They have a happy hour menu, and there's like 7 or 8 items on it, and it's like a burger, a steak sandwich, some other stuff that I didn't look at because I saw burger or steak sandwich.
Well, nice. So, that's good. And you know why we have that, Matt? Capitalism. Capitalism.
Yep.
Is why we have that.
That's right. Oddly enough,
or as close to capitalism as the state allows us to have, is why you can go and they serve food to you instead of you standing outside and begging for food somewhere.
That's right. And oddly enough, most of the people, the table that I was at, were easily. We lowered the average age of that restaurant a good 2 decades.
Oh, Ruth's Chris, yeah, that's an elderly joint. We have one here right next to the richest neighborhood in Myrtle Beach, Grand Dunes, and it is a Q-tip place. Yeah. It's where if I were still a kid, it's where I would go to illegally bust tables. But those days are past. Now I have to work legally. So speaking of socialism, in a roundabout way,
kinda.
We have a president named Donald Trump. You know what he did? He was at something. It's like the best segue ever. He was at CPAC, and which is the Conservative Political Action Committee.
Nope.
Nope.
That's what I was calling it. I meant to put it in the notes so that way we wouldn't mess it up, but it's not that.
What is it? It's the Conservative.
It's the Conservative. Maybe it is Conservative Political Action Committee. It is the it's this event that happens in D.C.
For conservative.
Right. It's this event for conservatives that happens in D.C. Political Action Conference.
Political Action Conference.
Right.
The Conservative Political Action Conference. Right. President Trump was there impersonating a conservative, and he gave a 2-hour speech. He started it by walking up and hugging the flag, which isn't weird at all. I think didn't Trump or Reagan start that where he would hug flags?
Yeah.
That's similar to not sending your neighbors to kill and die for Israel, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, that's coming up later. That's a preview.
That's coming up. That's definitely coming up later. But he walked out and hugged the flag. He condemned socialism. And said, what's the quote here? Socialism is not about the environment. It's not about justice. It is not about virtue. Doing well so far.
Yeah.
Socialism is only about one thing. It's called power for the ruling class. Yes, all of that's true.
All of that's true.
Trump, and all that is true.
Right. And what he's doing there immediately with the socialism is not about the environment is he's attacking the Green New Deal. 100%. Right. He's going after AOC and all of her followers immediately. And it's a really brilliant plan because with Mitch McConnell saying that they're going to go to a vote on the Green New Deal because he wants
Cocaine Mitch.
Dunking
on him.
Right. Because he wants the Democratic senators who are running for president to have to be on the record, as he said, on the Green New Deal. Trump is now going to take socialism and turn it into his big thing for 2020.
His punching bag.
Right.
It's actually pretty smart because there's actually apparently a poll that Matt put in the notes. There's a poll here. It's an NBC poll, and it recently showed that only 25% of Americans would be okay with a socialist president, which is actually down from 27% 3 years ago. So socialism, I mean, that's within the margin of error. So the point is that with all of this positive talk about socialism in most of major media and pop culture, at the very least, it hasn't gotten any more popular. And at worst, it's actually gotten slightly less popular. So this is actually Donald Trump's polling at, somewhere in the low to mid 40s. Socialism's polling at 25%. So it's kind of a smart move to make. I think this is going to be about saying you have to vote for me because I'm a vote against socialism.
Right. Which
is kind of smart.
It's a brilliant move. So Donald Trump is 74, I want to say.
Is he? I thought he was only like 71.
He could be. I think he was.
I know he's over 70.
Yeah,
he's 72.
72.
So we were both wrong.
Right. Okay. So Donald Trump is 72. Now, a lot of the people his age and right in that era will remember McCarthyism. They remember, they remember the trials going on and people were getting booted out of Hollywood and government officials.
The Red Panic. Right.
I believe Donald Trump is actually trying to bring something similar to that back. And I think that he is going after socialists. Like, he's going after the AOCs. He's going after the Bernie Sanders. He's going after, I can't think of another one right now because it's not in the nose. And I'm not sure if
Liz Warren, but she tries to. She doesn't really come out and say socialist. She says, like, I want, responsible capitalism.
Right.
But Sandy and Bernie definitely both, like, they are not shying about saying socialism.
Right.
And so he's pushing it. And it's interesting because, and again, in one hand you say I'm against socialism, and then you say here are all the things I want to socialize, like childcare and parental leave. But most people don't really think about how they vote. They go based on their feelings. And if they feel like this guy is against socialism and these other people are for socialism at a time when they're watching socialists starve to death and eat zoo animals in Venezuela, it's kind of perfect timing for him to use that as a bludgeon for the next year and a half or just under 2 years to wail on anyone that tries to either promote socialism or even just not bash it. And I don't think you're going to see a lot of Democrats that are running for president say, like, socialism's bad, we must stop it. They're going to say, oh, well, what we want is the social welfare programs, like social democracy, like in Scandinavia. And but they're not going to come out and say, we don't like socialism. And he's going to say, I hate socialism. And 75% of Americans are going to say, we do too. And it's very interesting. I think that's actually kind of smart that he's doing that.
It's a really brilliant campaign move, especially this early on.
Right.
Especially with people like your AOCs who seem to be the darling child of the left right now. I mean,
right.
With her preaching the socialism, socialism's great. We need socialism, even though, all of the evidence from everywhere proves that it doesn't work. And with her out there preaching it and having such a following and such like this, I don't want to say like godlike or goddess-like demeanor about her,
right?
But like many people on the left take what she says as just Bible and verse, and they're like, oh no, we can't attack her because she's AOC. Two, she likes socialism, so now we all have to like it too because that's where the Democratic Party's going. So for him to start this early on attacking it, as opposed to, I mean, in 2016 it was, illegal immigrants, and he started doing that back basically at CPAC in 2014 or something like that. he started going on illegal immigrant.
Oh yeah, he was banging that drum from like 2013, 2014 on.
Right.
And by the time 2015 rolled around and he was announcing in summer, I think June of 2015, summer of 2015, he had cemented himself as the one that was going to like speak the most forcefully about illegal immigration, to the point where it actually turned off a lot of people because he was so over the top with it. And now he's doing it with socialism. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see if it works. Now, we can obviously drill into the difference between, you know, massive public works projects and true quote unquote socialism. So she's not really advocating a lot for the public takeover of. It's interesting. She's actually, what she's calling for is actually more similar to fascism, where the government creates these giant public programs and appoints, you know, or approves for large, favored, politically connected companies to carry these things out at the taxpayer, on the taxpayer's dime. So it's not even really socialism. It's like some kind of like proto-fascism, but she's calling it social. Obviously, that socialism polls better than fascism, so she's calling it socialism, and he's bashing her on that. So, you know, I think, and I think you agree with me on this. I don't see a scenario where Trump doesn't get reelected unless he gets impeached or dies or something like that. Right. I think the Democrats are going to rip each other apart for the better part of a year and a half, and then right at the end they're going to be like, "Oh, we're all friends. Let's go fight Trump." And all the people that have been hearing for the last year how terrible all these other people are going to say, "No, I thought they were just as bad as Trump." So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Though.
Right. And I mean, as far as AOC going on, like on being a fascist, she did put on Twitter, "We're the leaders." You can yell from the cheap seats, but we're the leaders.
Yeah, that was so, you know, I'm so in touch with the working class and, you know, the common man. And then her response to people like legitimately criticizing and asking questions about her ridiculous $93 trillion cow fart control program and / ending airplane travel and building trains everywhere. Because that will definitely, nothing says I want to reduce fossil fuels like building train tracks everywhere. Because there's no way that there will be any kind of fossil fuels burnt doing that. But, you know, her response was to people asking questions was to say, essentially, well, we're in charge and you're in the cheap seats. Well, using that logic, Donald Trump's in charge, so shut up. Right. Like, I mean, if that's what we're doing here, Donald Trump's the president, so I guess you have to shut up. Which, I mean, it's just it was a not very socialisty. It didn't sound very much like the public was owning the means of production in that moment.
And I mean, in all technicality, it did sound kind of socialisty because I'm in charge. Shut up.
It sounded like how socialism actually plays out.
Right.
It didn't sound as much like how socialism looks on how it is written on paper. That, you know, oh, the public's going to own everything. There's not going to be any private ownership. We're all the people are going to own everything equally. And how it actually plays out is a often Latin dictator screaming to shut up. That's been a running theme with socialism. So
yes.
So par for the course.
El Presidente Alexandria.
El Presidente AOC.
AOC. Ooh. Speaking of socialist dictators.
Right.
But with Donald Trump railing on socialism, and a lot of people have like actually drawn the conclusion to like the communist, you know, capitalist versus communist, and, you know, capitalist versus socialist, and a lot of people are like going back to that time period. And just to keep with the flow of everything, Russia and the U.S. are both backing out of the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, the INF Treaty. Both sides both sides have been like, screw it.
So, I mean, from my understanding, from what I've read about it, is that Russia has always kind of not really been following this anyway. Like they've been, in fact, it says here they've been developing and deploying a missile that may violate the treaty. If they've been developing it, so shortly after the U.S. announced that they were pulling out of the treaty, Russia said, well, because you've pulled out of the treaty, we have this missile, which, would have violated the treaty.
Other way around.
Which
the U.S. pulled out because they were developing and testing the missile.
Oh, okay. Either way, even if they announced it the day before, it's not like you just developed it. You've been developing it for years, maybe even decades. So, you've been in violation of the thing. So they're in violation. The U.S. pulls out. Russia now has pulled out, which is kind of, at this point, academic because they weren't really obeying it to begin with. It says here, if neither side works to go ahead.
And I was going to say, and if one side's out of the treaty, is there still why would you follow the rules?
That's what I mean. So like, we're pulling out too. Okay, we already pulled out. So
right.
you do what you want. So this obviously there's going to be a lot of saber rattling. And I know it says here they want a new treaty that includes China and other countries. My thing is that so a lot of people get very concerned about this kind of stuff. Treaties for nuclear weapons have a similar dynamic to gun-free zone signs for guns. So everyone's just doing whatever they want for the most part with these treaties. I mean, we hear time and again, all these countries that signed on to the non-proliferation agreement for nuclear weapons, they all end up developing nuclear weapons. People are going to get what they want. And in my mind, and I've said this before, if I'm the head of a small country, the very first thing I would do is develop a nuclear weapons program and announce publicly that I'm doing it. And I would get as many concessions for my country as I could from larger countries like the US, Russia, China, whatever. And then as soon as I got those concessions, I would immediately announce that I was restarting the program, and then I would develop nuclear weapons and tell everyone to leave me the hell alone. And because the only way I as a small country, now this doesn't really apply to Russia, but the only way I as a small country can make sure that the US, Russia, China, eventually India, and larger countries can't or won't attack me is if I have nukes that can make that much worse for them than my tiny military ever could. So that doesn't really bother me that a North Korea or an Iran or even a Russia has nukes. What really keeps people from bombing each other is the fact that it would, well, first of all, with nukes, it would destroy the planet or destroy large chunks of the planet, which isn't really good for anyone, probably kill everyone. Right. But also, when you're so tied together trade-wise, world trade has done more to spread world peace than anything else, because if you and me, Matt, we don't like each other, but sure, if we're making money together, and to the point where if we got in an argument or started fighting or stopped talking to each other, it would really upset our bottom line. Even if we don't like each other, we're going to keep doing business with each other. And that's how it works with these trade agreements, that, if the more there's cross trade between these countries, between individuals in these different countries, the less likely. China didn't want to bomb us. Their economy would fall apart, and we're not going to bomb China because our economy would fall apart. And same thing with Russia and everything else. So, I think this is a lot of saber rattling. It's more, I think it has more to do with extracting concessions in terms of like getting more money for new weapons programs. And there's a lot of rent seeking here, where defense companies, contractors are going to come up and be like, well, you need a new bomber and you need a new missile and you need a new this. In terms of like any actual danger, maybe you disagree with me, but we're in no danger.
No, I don't think so. But a lot of the media pundits have been going around and they've been saying things like, this could be the beginning of the next Cold War. The Cold War is going to be reinvigorated. And no, I don't think so, because the mutually assured destruction, the mutually assured destruction clause of nuclear weapons is, if you launch one, it's the end of civilization. It's the end.
We're all going to die. Everyone is going to die.
And people are like, yeah, but you don't think that. Yeah, okay, so people on the left, you don't think Donald Trump is crazy enough to do this, and people on the right, Kim Jong-un is crazy enough to do that? No. Absolutely not.
No.
Megalomaniacs and narcissists understand the consequences of their actions. They do.
Correct.
They just don't give a crap.
Yep.
And if Donald Trump, who arguably loves Donald Trump more than anybody else on this planet, maybe Ivanka, maybe.
It's a close one, but he definitely cares more about himself than us.
Right. He is not going to put himself in a position where he is going to die by nuclear weapon.
No.
Kim Jong-un, same thing. Putin, same thing.
Yep.
Everybody who's out there with this capability is not going to do it because that means that them, or if they care about their families more than themselves, which they probably don't, it means that their families are going to die as well. And they don't want that because of lineages and the old school hierarchies of royalty and stuff like that that they still kind of live by in their own minds. They don't want to get rid of it. So there is, whenever you're like, oh, we're on threat of nuclear war. No, we aren't.
No, we aren't.
No, we aren't.
No. So we now know there are different stories, and one of them was of a. So there was a nuclear sub off the Pacific, and it was a Russian nuclear sub, and there was some kind of technical glitch that they lost communication with the Kremlin, and it went on for quite a period of time. And their protocol was if they lost communication for more than X amount of time, 2 hours, 10 hours, whatever, however long it was, to immediately launch their missiles at the U.S. And that protocol came up, and the people on the boat said, the people in the sub were like, no, we're not going to do it. Because if it's true that everyone is dead in Russia, nothing is accomplished by killing everyone in the U.S., and also we'd probably die too. There's nothing to go back to. And thankfully, then within a few hours or whatever, they then saw that it was just a technical glitch and everything was fine. And there are a couple different examples of that where all the protocols were met for people to start launching missiles, and the response on both sides was for people to say, let's give them a call and make sure everything's okay, or let's just back off and wait, because you don't rise to the level of the head of an organization as big as the government without a massive amount of survival instinct. Like it's something that's inherent in you to be able to rise to those kind of ranks. You have to have a survival instinct. You also have to be willing for other people, lots and lots of other people, to die for you to get there. But not you, and not people that you necessarily care about, but definitely not you. And so all the talk that Kim Jong-un has, all the talk that Putin has and Trump has, and even like the heads of like Hezbollah and Hamas and Al-Qaeda and all these groups, they're not sending their kids to die. The head of Hamas sent his kid to the U.S. to be educated. He wasn't going to let his kid die like that, and he certainly wasn't going to die like that. So no, none of these people are actually going to. There's no threat of nuclear war. What nuclear weapons have done is added an additional reason not to go to war in the first place, because now it's no longer just bombs and bullets. It's rendering entire chunks of the planet uninhabitable for decades or centuries and killing everyone there. And if you do it on a big enough scale, everyone dying and the entire planet being rendered uninhabitable. So that does nothing for anyone. I'm not a fan of nukes, but I also am not particularly scared of that. I think you're much more likely to be attacked by a cop enforcing some stupid bylaw than you are by Russian nukes.
Yeah, and it's funny.
I've been going hard on cops for the last week. I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah, you have been. And yeah, it's funny because like we'll get into conversations with people on the right. Well, I'm certain Spike does too. I don't know. But I'll get into conversations with people on the right, and I'll say things like, "Yeah, we spend too much on defense, and like the TSA is pointless, and with a 97% fail rate and whatever." And then, but we need them. Why? Because what if ISIS brings a nuke over on a plane? Okay, well, where are they going to get a nuke? Where are they going to get a nuke? And
yeah, who's going to give them a nuke?
Right. Who's going to be like, you know what, ISIS? Here's your nuke. I believe you're going to use this for only good.
Right. This is clearly a defensive move on your part.
Right.
So if nukes were if we were actually in a real threat of a terror group using a nuke, we'd all already either be dead or have seen, a major city being lost or something like that. Like that's these things, they don't happen. The reason they don't happen isn't because of, this great these great sentinels keeping vigil, watching over us at night. That's all just a statist lie. The reason we're safe is because nukes are on a completely different level. You can get someone to blow themselves up, you can. There are plenty of people that will send someone with a vest bomb to go blow up a store or a pizza shop or whatever, like to do some like horrific thing like that. It's another thing to send someone to kill tens or hundreds of thousands or even millions of people with the understanding that you will then also die the same way.
Right.
That just, people don't do that. If they did, we'd already all be dead. So we opened the nuclear Pandora's box 3 generations ago. We're all still alive. I'm not worried about it at this point.
Yep. And I'm not even gonna go all the way out and say that it's not anything that we're never gonna have to deal with, because maybe, possibly,
it's possible.
In a long enough timeline, anything can happen, and everything will, and yeah, at some point, possibly, but whether or not we do anything about it now isn't going to change the fact that it's going to happen in the future. But right now, nothing is going to, nobody's going to be launching nukes against each other. There's not a chance of that happening.
No, it's not. If it did happen, it would be an emergency.
It would be an emergency.
It would be an emergency that would be declared.
I was going to say if it did happen, it would be a technical problem that happened, like the Russia thing, and it's like, oh, okay. And some idiot that's there accidentally is going to launch it.
Oh, that could also,
but then
that
an
could
emergency
happen.
would
Supposedly,
be
there's so many things in place to prevent something like that from happening. But
right.
Who knows?
Right. But then an emergency would be declared.
Then an emergency would be declared. And I'll tell you what, guys. Turns out that there is an emergency being declared. These segues, man, I'm usually way better on the segues.
Are you?
I usually feel better about my segues. Let me put it that way.
That's better.
So anyway, guess what, everyone? Donald Trump had issued an emergency declaration for the illegal immigration crisis, which is at an all-time low for the last, I think, 15 years. And so it's an emergency. And oddly enough,
that number actually comes from Donald Trump.
Yeah, no, Donald Trump in his State of the Union, in praising his efforts, his own efforts and the efforts of ICE and the Border Patrol in stopping illegal immigration, talked about the fact that, and we streamed that live, and we're saying this isn't really helping your argument,
right?
That illegal crossings were at all-time lows, and what he didn't talk about, and this is true, is that there's actually fewer illegal immigrants here now, or illegal aliens, because I know people get upset when you say illegal immigrants. There are undocumented migrants, persons,
undocumented citizens.
Well, what happens is, so you get it on both sides. If you say illegal immigrants, the border hawks are like, they're not immigrants, they're aliens. And then if you say illegal immigrants, this side's like, people aren't illegal, they're undocumented Americans. And so I just say, well, I say whatever I want, but
to me, they're illegal immigrants.
They're illegal immigrants. They're immigrants who aren't here legally.
They're
I don't see why this is
immigrated here
name is controversial.
Illegally.
They're here illegally. I don't have a problem that they're here illegally, but they're here illegally. It is what it is. There are drugs that are illegal. I don't think they should be, but they are. Anyway, so illegal. No humans are illegal. Well, these ones are. They're not. Their humanity isn't illegal. Their presence is illegal. Anyway, there are fewer of them here than there have been since the late 90s or something like that, or the early 2000s. So most, something like half of the illegal Mexicans went back when the economy went south, and coincidentally, the Mexican economy started doing better, and so a lot of them stayed there. So most of this new immigration illegal immigration is actually from Central and South American countries, as well as from people that come over from Asia and parts of Europe and Africa and just overstay their visas, which a wall will do nothing about. But so this emergency that doesn't exist, he declared the emergency, but part of that emergency is that I guess Congress or the Senate has to vote to approve it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we're going to go with anyway.
That's what we're going to go with. The Senate has, or something, because the Senate has blocked, or is they did actually block it, right?
They have not voted yet, but with Rand Paul stating that he is going to vote against the national emergency and he's going to vote for blocking it. He is the 51st vote. So you don't even need like a supermajority. You just need a majority. And that's probably because they did the nuclear option back in Obama's time.
That's what I'm wondering. Yeah. And it may not be, because I know there are certain things that the Senate, like budgetary stuff, the Senate only needs a simple majority. So this may be that way too. But regardless, but you're right. It might be because
the nuclear option was pulled.
The guy, because before Cocaine Mitch, Harry Reid killed the nuclear option. So Cocaine Mitch came in and finished killing it. But yeah, Rand Paul said he's voting against the emergency declaration. So a lot of people, this has been a common refrain amongst strict conservatives and libertarians, that when Trump does this, it will set a precedent that a Democrat will now be able to come in and, say that, for example, climate change is an emergency, and so I need to, and so, I'm going to pass the Green New Deal or some other, cap and trade or whatever, or, gun violence is an emergency, and so we have to pass gun control, without, bothering to consult Congress. So there are currently 31 active national emergency declarations. And so a precedent, this big of a precedent, it definitely would be set, but this has been done many times where presidents just bypass Congress, usually on smaller things, to just do whatever they want anyway and declare it as an emergency. The difference with those is that they were able to actually demonstrate at the time an immediate emergency situation, but then it just stays indefinitely. So what kind of an emergency is that? The other thing is that I'm not sure that Democrats need a precedent to do stuff. They seem to be the ones that set precedents.
Yeah, I mean, accurate. They kind of. That's actually accurate as.
Yeah, they tend to just be like, all right, we're the what do they say? We're the change we've been waiting for. It's like, well, wait, you're not supposed to do that. We don't care.
We don't care. We're doing it anyway. And yeah, I mean, not everybody, many people. I don't want to say everybody. Many people said no, this shouldn't be done because of the precedent, and. Many of the people who are straight, Trump all the time, kind of Trumpian right-wingers, Trump can do no wrong, even though that's incorrect. They would say things along the lines of, you could say, well, then the precedent's set for, they could do this about climate change or gun control. You don't think they'd do that anyway? I mean, yeah, probably, because your guy's planning on doing it now. So, I mean, why?
Right, exactly. Like we don't care. Precedent isn't even a thing anymore at this point. It's just like
is nothing.
No one is. I mean, the level of lip service that is given to constitutional limitation of government just has reached a point of like it being a joke now. Like, when was the last time you heard Donald Trump talk about how he's not going to do something because the Constitution won't let him? Even Obama would occasionally say that, as sort of a passing thing, like, oh, I'd do this if I could, but the Constitution won't let me. Donald Trump just, now he'll say if there's something he's against.
I will say that most of the times that Obama said that, they were completely staged events, like obviously, forcefully, painfully staged events.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Where he'd be talking about something completely different. And he'd be talking about something completely different. And then somebody from behind him at one of his speeches would, you need to do something about immigration and whatever. And he would go, the Constitution won't let me. We need the votes, and the Republicans won't give it to us. It's like, man, the guy's talking from behind you. That's not a guy yelling at you from the crowd. You put that guy there.
You go, hey, hey, do something about guns.
This isn't.
Or you're reading the thing. I want you to do gun control, please.
This isn't
put the thing back in your pocket.
Right, exactly. Yeah, this isn't baseball where you don't know who's sitting behind home plate. Everybody
Who said that?
Everybody back there is there because you put them there.
Right.
You know what they're all doing there. You know everybody behind you. You don't know the people in front of you.
Yep, exactly. So, but he at least gave some lip service. He didn't really follow it, but he gave some lip service. Trump's not even doing that anymore. The only time you'll hear Trump say something is unconstitutional, and the left does this too. The Democrats do this too. They'll say, that's unconstitutional, and that's their way of saying, I don't want to do that thing that you just proposed.
Right.
And there's almost never any actual like delving into why the Constitution doesn't let them do that. They're just like, that's unconstitutional. It's like saying that's socialism. Like, okay. So yeah, I'm not worried about, I mean, I'm an anarchist, so I think I'm not concerned about precedent or the Constitution at this point, but it's not an emergency. Let's just talk about the definitions of words.
Right.
If the Constitution, whatever, words, English and spelling and definitions in the dictionary, an emergency is something that has just started and is an acute situation that has to be dealt with immediately, or else it's going to spiral out of control. Okay? So, for example...
Like a nuclear weapon.
Like a nuclear weapon. If the president hears that Russia is sending nukes to Canada on the border, Justin Trudeau is sick of this shit, and he's gonna take over America with the help of Vladimir Putin. He's done with this nonsense. No more Mr. Nice.
The Canadian Missile Crisis.
The Canadian Missile Crisis. No more Mr. Nice Guy, eh? And so, if he hears that's happening, first of all, he'd get the votes to do whatever he wanted. But if he hears it's happening in like 6 hours, and he's like, this is an emergency, and I'm doing this, and I have to do it right now, that would be a legitimate, you'd be able to say that's an emergency. A immigration crisis that started in earnest in the 1970s, 1960s and 70s, entirely because of immigration controls that stopped what was up until then just a free flow back and forth of migrant laborers. But a crisis that was started before any of us were born, especially us, because we're super young. Really, really young.
Really young.
And was temporarily alleviated with an amnesty, and then it just got worse again because now there are more illegals coming in, and got at its worst sometime in the early 2000s, and has been ebbing and actually reducing as a problem. Or if you even call it illegal immigration a problem, it has been reducing so that there are actually fewer illegals now than there were 10, 15 years ago or 10 years ago. And you've been, for the last 2 years, saying, well, hey, let's try to come up with something legislatively. And they say no. And you go, well, now it's an emergency then. That's not an emergency.
That's not an emergency.
That isn't, in no way is that an emergency. If you like that he's doing it, you may be able to twist how that's an emergency, but it isn't. It's not. You may agree with him doing it, but that doesn't make it an emergency.
Now,
so
if I am correct, there is currently a national emergency on the opioid epidemic, correct?
That would be something that I would consider an emergency. You've got a rising number of a skyrocketing number of deaths, and I certainly don't want government to do any more about it because they've done a bang-up job so far, but that is an actual emergency. That's a thing that is getting worse and worse and worse, and unless something major changes, then it's just going to keep getting worse, and yes, that's an emergency.
Right. So, I mean, everybody knows that a lot of the opioid epidemic, completely off book here. A lot of people know that because of the opioid epidemic, a lot of it starts because of how much that we're prescribing out to people. And it's like we're prescribing people Vicodin and Oxycontin and all these other wonderful drugs to take when you're not sick that you shouldn't definitely do because it's causing this opioid epidemic. And I know that there was a national emergency declared over this opioid epidemic. But a lot of that has to do with the fact that they have banned all of this other stuff. Like they've banned, weed. Just for the really easy example, they've banned weed federally. So for years, you couldn't use weed to treat your pain or to treat whatever. And instead, you're like, okay, well, yeah, for your painkillers, take this Vicodin or take this Percocet or take this Oxycontin or Oxycodone or whatever. Morphine if you're real lucky. And bringing back memories.
Dilaudid. We're both recovering drug addicts.
Like immediately I'm like, whoo, breaking out in a little bit of mild sweat. Is it warm in here? Anyway,
like remembering an old love,
right?
Wonder what she's up to.
I wonder what she's doing now.
I never do that because I never had a love before my wife.
Right.
I can imagine that's what it would be like. Actually, I did it was drugs.
Yeah.
But I wonder how drugs are doing.
I wonder how drugs are.
What if drugs still has the same number they did before?
Oddly enough, they do.
1-800-DRUGS.
But one of the reasons that this show was founded. Is because we believed in the basic right to try kind of thing, and being able to believe in Kava and kratom. And real quick thing on kratom for anybody who does not know what kratom is. Kratom comes from the leaf of the kratom tree and can be found in Southeast Asia. The leaf is ground up and made into a tea. It's usually pulverized into powder and then made into a tea, or you can anyway. None of that really matters, but it's got some really great effects. And some will wake you up, some will kind of mellow you out, and others will have sort of I'm not a doctor, so I can't legally say it, but technically I don't work for a kratom company anymore, so pain relieving effects.
Right.
The FDA has been fighting kratom from coming into the States. They want to ban it federally. And they actually did for a little while, and I was right there on the front lines fighting against that, and the DEA did ban it, made it Schedule 1 for 30 days, and then they overturned it, first time ever, that the DEA...
First time ever, right. Yep.
That the DEA overturned. And they all did it based on the advice of Scott Gottlieb, who is the FDA chair. And he's continually fighting, and he says nothing. And he's like, no, kratom's bad for you. It's awful for you. You should not take it. It should be banned. But he doesn't say anywhere that he used to sit on the board of the company that has the patent for synthetic kratom. Says nothing about that. Leaves all of that out while he's saying we need to ban kratom. But as of today, it was announced he is resigning next month.
Nice.
And hopefully... whoever comes in next will stop pushing synthetic opiate. What's the Suboxone? Stuff like Suboxone or
Narcan and stuff like that.
Well, Narcan's different. Narcan's the one that brings you back to life when you're overdosing. Narcan's the one that jam into you and the.
I thought Narcan was one of the.
No, it's like Suboxone or the other clinics that I can't think of right now. Stop pushing
methadone.
Methadone, thank you. Stop pushing methadone and stop pushing Suboxone and stuff like that, and push these natural things that can help people out. Push push the natural ones. Push kratom to people. Personally, I don't like it. It makes my stomach turn, but it helps so many people.
It's helping people, right?
Yeah,
right.
It helps so many people. So, Scott Gottlieb, I'm not going to say it on the air because we've been really getting better about not cursing on the air, but I'll give you one of these. And I can't wait to see you gone, man, because you. I'm so happy you're leaving.
Wasn't he also the guy that was, trying to spread this panic about teens vaping?
Yes.
And he was like, we need to have all this stuff like vaping, which, I mean, there is some nicotine in it, but that's true of a bunch of stuff that kids can get. Right. You fill them full of sugar. It's the same effect. And he's like, kids could be vaping, and he wanted to like do all these really tough restrictions that would restrict and tax vaping the same way that they restrict and tax cigarettes and tobacco products, which sort of eliminates the point. If you're a kid that's illegally smoking cigarettes and you're trying to get off of it, but you can't vape, right. So you're going to keep smoking cigarettes. Like it was just a stupid thing. So yeah, no, I'm glad he's gone, or he's going to be gone.
He's going to be gone.
The thing with the opioid crisis, there's many contributing factors. Almost all of them are related to government. So first of all, the U.S. military is currently protecting and underwriting the production of poppy fields, growing of poppies in Afghanistan, which is where most opium, which comes from poppy seeds, which is used to be synthesized into all these different things. That's the U.S. military protecting it. And then you have the DEA protecting drug cartels in Central and South America that bring it into the U.S. So that's an issue right there. They're helping. Your tax dollars are being used to bring down the price of narcotics. The other thing that happens is, okay, so they aren't allowing these, they're either not allowing or they're putting pressure on these natural ways that you can get off of opiates and relieve and alleviate pain. So they get you on these synthetics, but then what they do is right around the time that you're hooked and absolutely need the synthetics, now they put you on these lists where you can't get them anymore. So they've got you hooked. You're taking it. You get to the point where you're now an addict, and they go, oh, you know what? You're taking too much of this. We're not going to let you take it anymore. Well, now what? Now you start using heroin.
Well, first, legitimately, you first start looking for your painkillers on the black market.
Yes, that's true. You're often looking.
Yeah, you're like, hey, I need Vicodin, or I need, whatever, Percocets or whatever. And they're like, okay. And they start finding you that on the black market. And I'm not going to say that I know this from experience, but those are like 10 to $20 a pop on the black market. So, and that's because they know people will pay it. Because it's absolutely necessary. If you go with like Oxycodone or Oxycontin, you're looking at like $50 a pop, and it's expensive. And heroin is not.
Heroin is super cheap. Heroin used to be expensive, but with the advent of black tar heroin, which is sort of like the crack of heroin, so cocaine used to be super expensive. And the reason the crack epidemic happened was because by freebasing it, you could produce way more crack out of the same amount of cocaine, which made crack cheap. So now it was accessible. So now people could overdose and die and everything else.
Right.
We're now seeing the same thing with heroin that started a few years ago, but it's just been ramping up over time. And it's you get someone hooked to something, you don't allow them to have natural and less lethal and less addicting alternatives. So you put them on this eventually lethal and addicting option. And then you say, okay, you've had too much, you can't have it anymore. So now they're having to get it illegally, which costs way more. Or you say, I can get black tar heroin for
pennies,
almost pennies. Like it's like a few bucks.
Right.
So now you can support, and now you're a drug addict, like an actual street drug addict. So you're
at that point you're a straight junkie at that point.
Yeah, you're a junkie at that point, but you can afford to be a junkie because it only costs you a few bucks to get a fix. So you can, it's not going to be easy, but you can. And in Myrtle Beach, they're everywhere. It seems like in the last couple of years, the last year or so, it's gotten a little bit better. But I don't think it's because they're not junkies anymore. I think it's because they have facilities for them now. But they end up at the hospital. They're running. They're a huge strain on the hospital infrastructure because they have to use Narcan. I forgot the Narcan. I didn't realize Narcan. I knew there was a thing they get them out of the overdose with, but I didn't realize it was Narcan.
Yeah.
But they have to do all that, and they have to hospitalize them afterwards and bring them back to health, because they're still human beings that that they want to keep alive. And then they let them out and go, now don't do that again. And that's the opioid crisis. And it's almost entirely it's almost entirely a machination of government. It wouldn't be happening without government involvement. In a free market, you wouldn't see this level of addiction to a specific type of drug because they'd have other options.
Right. It's like,
write your congressman.
Right. It's like, man, we are going way off book, but I like where it's at.
Yeah, I think we're covering something important.
Right. But yeah, it's like, so when we're younger nowadays, like not even though you and I are young, not when we were growing up, but like we were basically speedballing children by giving them Ritalin and, you know, other ADD drugs that are just like, just putting them on literal speed. And I know that from personal meth. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were giving them meth. And I know that from personal experience of using it, not legally. It's meth. And I know that from personal experience as well. Yeah. It's the same drug. Yeah. We're basically doing that. And then they go out and they're like complete zombies because they're cracked out of their minds. And then they hurt themselves. And then they're like, oh, well, put them on this meth and throw in these opiates, and now you're literally speedballing these children.
Yep.
And that was how we lost River Phoenix, if anybody didn't remember that.
Right. Like this is like OD territory. They're just giving them smaller doses of the same stuff, but you're compounding a drug. And you're right. I didn't really make that connection, but you're speedballing them. Like you got them. They're on the Elvis diet. You got them doing uppers in the morning and downers at night. And then wondering why they're all screwed up.
Right.
And my personal experience with Ritalin or amphetamine salts was much later in life. My doctor suspected that I had not OCD. I do have OCD. Suspected I had ADHD or ADD, whatever the adult version is. I guess ADHD. And they said, so what we're going to do is we're going to put you on amphetamine salts. Just take one. And if you'll know either way whether you're ADHD. If you are ADHD, it's going to calm you down and make you feel like super mellow and make it easier for you to focus. If you're not, you'll know. And I knew that was the most exciting. You asked my wife about that one day. That was the most exciting 24 hours of my life. I was playing with everyone's dogs in the neighborhood and screaming at people. And I was a psycho. So that was fun.
Yeah, I remember.
And we're doing that with kids.
Yeah, I mean, I remember procuring a handful of Ritalin when I was in my early 20s. And my mom was like, I think you maybe needed Ritalin growing up. And I was like, Mom, I'm a drug addict. Like, are you certain you wanted to start me earlier? And
right.
But I remember procuring some of it, and I was at work at a job that was definitely less than legal, and it was a job I couldn't get fired from, which is why I had no problem crushing up and snorting Ritalin in the back room, because what were they going to do? Fire me? No, everything going on was illegal. There was nothing that they could do. And so I was snorting Ritalin, and then I was coming out and working my shift. Like, I did like 30-minute shifts. And man, this kind of makes me sound like I'm like giving handies. And which I wasn't.
I was gonna say, what kind of, this is a very interesting line of work you seem to have been.
I was dealing cards at an underground poker game.
Nice.
In DC. Like,
okay.
Yeah, there were no licenses on our walls. Like, I just happened to fall into this gig, and it's like, you can't really, like, I would do all the drugs there, because what are you going to do? You can't call the cops. You can't fire me, because then the cops could get called. So, like, I was back there just...
We're all in this together.
Right.
Exactly.
Like, all of the laws being broken here, we all understand it. We all accept it. Like...
Right.
It's fine. So, like, I'm back there just ripping rails of Ritalin, and then I'm going out and I'm dealing cards, and I'm like... And, like, my boss was like... What are you on? And I'm like, I just took some Ritalin. That's all I did, is I took some Ritalin. Literally gave me ecstasy to calm down.
So now you're taking Molly, basically.
Well, back then, you know, because we're really young, so I did this at a very young age. But back then, ecstasy was essentially heroin. Because, you could get Molly, which was pure MDMA, or you could get ecstasy, which was MDMA cut with things. And it was normally cut with like cocaine or heroin. They knew that I liked the ones that would lower my heart rate. And so those were the ones that were cut with heroin. So like he had a stash of those for whenever I got like too amped up on anything else. And so like I remember doing all like just snorting lines of Ritalin and him giving me ecstasy to calm me down so I could do my job at a relatively decent level.
A normal, somewhat normal pace, right? So take that, Scott Gottlieb.
Right. Even with all your FDA rules and the DEA rules, I still did it all.
Exactly. So where are we on our... So now you know who can probably fix this. Guys.
I'm going to cut that part out and make it a YouTube segment.
Which, the drug part?
The drug part, just the drug part.
Yeah, that's the drug part. That's going to be its own episode.
Yeah.
So, guys, I know you're concerned about where this country's headed.
Obviously.
And I am too. That's why you're watching this show.
That's right.
And because we care. But you don't have to worry much longer. We can all breathe a collective sigh of relief because former Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper is running for president as a Democrat. He's apparently a Democrat. So if you were worried about the direction of this country for you and your children and your loved ones, worry no longer because John Hickenlooper is going to be the next president, possibly. Jay Inslee, someone else I've heard of but don't really know.
Governor. He's either the governor or the former governor of Washington.
Jay Inslee so he's running.
He is running. Yeah, he's running.
He is also running. So Jay Inslee, Hickenlooper, Inslee 2020. Andrew Cuomo is doing a Mario Cuomo where he's thinking about it forever. That's what his dad did in the 80s. I wasn't alive then, so I didn't know, but I was told later that he kept saying, "Oh, I might do it, I might not do it, I might do it, I might not," and he never did. But Andrew Cuomo is thinking about it, but I guess only if Joe Biden doesn't run. Hillary's officially out.
Hillary's came out today and said, "I am not running in 2020."
Well, now I don't know who I'm going to vote for in the Democratic primary.
So fun fact that like so much news was breaking right before the show, which is why I was a few minutes late getting here, is because like somebody else would send me a new article and I'm reading it. Biden. So Cuomo said he's thinking about running, but he's only going to run if Biden does not.
Right.
Because, more than 2 white men in the race or something. I don't know. But CNN did a... God, what are those things called? Where they have random people come in off the streets and they ask them questions and they vote, and like they do it for movies all the time and be like, "Did you like the way the movie ended?"
What, like exit polling?
It's not exit polling, but it's like before, like it's a group of people that comes in and a PR company asks.
Focus group.
Thank you, focus group. They had so they had a Democratic focus group, and they were asking people, and these were people who voted for Hillary in 2016. That was basically the only criteria to get in. But people who voted for Hillary in 2016, and in this group, they were asking them questions of, would you vote for a socialist? Would you vote for a female? Would you vote for a white guy? Whatever, blah, blah, blah. They asked the question to this focus group of, would you vote for Joe Biden? No one raised their hand.
That doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise me, but I wonder if that will change. Because I still, recently we've been saying he's running, and I'm beginning to question.
Yeah, I don't know. If he is going to run, it needs to be pretty quickly because, we're almost out of announcement season.
April is kind of where it ends.
Yeah, so when Trump announced in 2015, it was really, really late. But he also, he already had a bunch of... Everyone already knew who he was, so he didn't have to spend a month or two getting everyone to know who he was. Everyone already knew who he was, so he kind of had that advantage.
Much like John Hickenlooper.
Who instantly... at this point, I'm not sure we even need an election. I think it's pretty much just... a coronation of John Hickenlooper.
Right.
And his vice president Jay Inslee. But Biden,
either that or Pete Buttigieg.
Is that someone else that's running?
Yeah, he's the mayor of Indianapolis that's running. He's
There's
the 36-year-old outed gay guy that's running.
Oh, so he's probably the only confirmed gay guy running as a Democrat.
Yeah.
Okay. So he'll get still zero attention. Yeah, I mean, I you know me, I always thought that Biden would come in, everyone would blast Biden for a year and a half. He'd still win it because he has the most name recognition, and most people just don't pay attention.
Yeah.
Trump won in retrospect, after all the polling and all the people voted for Trump because he was the only one that they had heard of at that point, which meant they just weren't paying attention. Because everyone else was all over the news, but most people aren't paying attention. So I just assumed that if he comes in, he can just weather that storm and not do any major gaffes, and then, just win because he's Joe Biden and he's the one everyone knows because he was, Obama's cool vice president or whatever. And that just these other people were going to be also Rands. It's looking more and more like he's not going to step in. And if that happens, then I'm not sure who I think is going to win. Do you? Except for John Hickenlooper?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, it's Hickenlooper Buttigieg is my current hope. But
it's America's hope.
I actually saw Buttigieg on, I think it was Colbert, which is how I learned how to say Buttigieg. And that was where I was like, okay, you know what? I don't mind the guy. I don't mind the guy. Like, I wouldn't vote for him, but whatever. But I just like saying the name Buttigieg. So, like, I'm hoping for him, but he's too young. And
imagine
and he's
everyone
gay,
saying,
so that's going to hurt.
Say President
Buttigieg. Yeah, President
for 4 years.
Yeah, Buttigieg.
And what's his first name?
Pete
Buttigieg. Buttigieg. Yeah. So, and Hickenlooper Buttigieg.
Hickenlooper Buttigieg.
Say that fast.
Hickenlooper
compared
Buttigieg.
to Trump, Pence.
Right. But yeah, like right now, it's looking Kamala Harris.
Is it though?
Right now,
I guess it is.
Yeah.
I guess it is.
Right now, she is in the lead, but she's in the lead too early. Like,
that's a good point.
Yeah, right now it doesn't really matter who's in the lead. If the vote happened today, yeah, it'd be Kamala Harris. But since the vote doesn't happen till next year, most places, one place I think it is this year. But if the vote were
a couple of places it's at the end of the year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right now it looks Kamala Harris. First of all, since I know absolutely nothing about Jay Inslee or John Hickenlooper, and I know for certain that Bloomberg is out and Hillary is out. Like, back in 1992, nobody knew who Clinton was. 1991, nobody knew who Clinton was.
Yeah, no one knew who Clinton was.
And he came out of nowhere to win that and beat Bush, which nobody thought was going to happen.
No one thought that, yeah.
No one thought that was going to happen. So there is a chance that we see President Hickenlooper, which for this show, tons of fun to be had.
Oh, gosh. Let me tell you something. At this moment, I think Hickenlooper is my vote.
Right.
Hickenlooper and or Buttigieg are my vote in the South Carolina Democratic primary.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I
mean, even Jay Inslee, like any of these people, relatively unknowns. Like, yeah, they're probably well known within the party, or enough to be, I'm going to run. With the exception of the guy from Maryland whose name I forget that announced like back in 2017. Everybody.
Oh, I don't even. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody else is relatively well known, especially inside the Democratic circles. Now, these guys, they're probably well known inside the Democratic circles, but I don't think any of them went, you know who would make a great president old John Hickenlooper. And he heard that. He heard the call. The call came out. He answered, and he was like, yeah, I'll run for president.
I'll run for president. Anxious America who desperately... He's the hero that we both want and deserve.
Right.
Someone sent out the Hickenlooper signal, and out he came, as he often does. Speaking of awesome names, here's one. The FEC has filed a complaint or complaints against, this isn't the name, by the way, against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's chief of staff, Saikat Chakrabarti.
Old Saikat Chakrabarti.
Saikat Chakrabarti, who I think actually is my pick for the Democratic primary. Old Saikat Chakrabarti. And so basically, I read about it, and it didn't really catch my attention too much because I was being very ADHD. I don't have ADHD, I know from taking meth, but so there was he was operating different PACs, and he was kind of using them to hide the fact that they were tied to the Cortez campaign or something like that. And my whole thing is like, if you want to donate to a political campaign, you should be able to do that. Like, right. This whole like campaign finance thing, it never really like bothers me because I don't think you should be telling someone what to do with their money anyway.
Right.
So,
So
and nothing's going to come from it. Maybe to Chakrabarti, but not to AOC.
So, AOC, who recently went up to the House and went off on campaign finance issues.
Oh yeah,
right.
With her lightning round.
So she goes up and she does her lightning round where she's like, we're going to do a lightning round. Imagine that I am an evil person, which 50% of you in this room probably believe. Also, AOC, 50% of America does too. So yeah, she went up and was talking about FEC violations and asking all these questions about what's legal, what's not legal, and then she got completely schooled at the end. Which, if you watch the video online, odds are you don't get the end of that. You only get her portion where she's getting yes or no answers. It's not when she gets the description of how everything works. Right. Now, what Saikat Chakrabarti. So what Chakrabarti was kind of found guilty of doing is he was giving illegal funds, or he was paying somebody a salary who wasn't really working for the PAC and wasn't really working for the campaign, and that was AOC's boyfriend.
Oh. Uh-oh.
And recently, AOC has come under fire for not having her boyfriend listed as an official member of her staff, but he has a staff email.
Right, yeah, I remember about that, yeah.
Right.
I remember that.
Which is, they started investigating that and being like, well, is he on the payroll? What does he do? Why does he have a staff email? And they were like, well, he has a staff email so he can look at my Google Calendar, which, not the same calendar, AOC, different calendars. You do not use your congressional calendar with your Google Calendar. Those aren't the same. One's hackable. The other is probably hackable, but much more difficult to hack.
Much less hackable, right? Right.
So she was like, oh, no, he only has that email so he can look at my Google Calendar. Everybody's like, well, that makes no sense because you shouldn't have that on your Google Cal. And
right.
So then it was like, oh, well, no, I mean, he's working with us, but he's not in campaign. Like, he's not with the staff officially, but we gave him an email address. And so people started looking into it, and then they started realizing that he was getting payouts during the course of her campaign that I think totaled something like $6,000 or $7,000. And since they can't find a reason for him to get this money is why he's having the FEC violations against him. And since he's Chakrabarti is the one who organized all of these payments to, I think his name is Rob Riley. It's either Rob Riley or Rich Riley. He's got a double R. since he organized all these payments, he is the one that's getting in trouble, even though in the end, for anybody who doesn't like AOC, this is going to be AOC is just another dirty politician. For anybody who likes AOC, no, she had a boyfriend that did something wrong and didn't know he was doing something wrong.
Right. And it's one of those where the details are muddled enough where you can believe either one based on your confirmation bias. Regardless, nothing's going to happen to her. I don't see anything happening to her. No. People in positions of power and influence, unless they do like egregious things, usually get away with it. Right. I mean, Hillary with her email server and, Benghazi. Trump with what he may or may not have done. There's all this, raking over the coals of public opinion, but in terms of any actual like repercussions, no, because it's people deciding whether to attack their bosses or not, and they don't. So,
and a long time ago, somebody said to me, "We do not convict." Right, we do not convict our politicians. As long as they are doing something like political, like yes, what's that? Denny. He used to be Speaker of the House from Illinois, and
I can see his face right now. The guy after Gingrich, Hastert, Dennis Hastert,
Denny Hastert. Yeah, he's going to jail, or he is in jail,
right,
for touching little boys. That has absolutely
nothing
to do
the
with,
kind of stuff that
absolutely nothing to do with his political work.
Right.
Whatever egregious things he did as a politician, to all of them.
And all of them,
all of them deserve it.
Yeah.
In one way.
Definitely all deserve it.
In one way or another, all of them deserve it.
Yep. So that's definitely not going to happen, but it's some fun intrigue, and it's also what will happen is it's over time the whole varnish of her being this untouchable, incorruptible, beacon of justice is just going to fall apart. No one's going to even try to pretend to believe that anymore. So here's how we're going to end the show with one more name that is fun to pronounce and me making lots of enemies, which is common on my show. I make enemies on this show too.
You do your fair share.
I do my fair share. So the House is going to be voting to condemn Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. I don't know how to. I know Omar, but Ilhan Omar. I think
Ilhan.
She's the lady that she married her brother, supposedly, and Ilhan Omar. My wife said, old brother marrying Ilhan Omar. For some comments that she has made that are anti-Semitic, and she's going to be condemned for it. Her most recent anti-Semitic comments are, a few weeks back, she said something along the lines of, she basically described what AIPAC does, the American Israeli Political Action Committee, which they basically, they don't directly donate funds to politicians, but they support legislation and push and lobby for politicians to support it. And coincidentally, the ones who do support it, they create separate political action committees that they coincidentally send and train activists to manage to help them win re-election. So they're, in a roundabout way, they are giving money, not directly, but they are using their money and infrastructure to help them get reelected, which is what political action committees do. And she dared to say that that's what they do, and she was attacked for being anti-Semitic. Well, her newest thing is she said something along the lines of that the people that are supporting, that are over the top of their support of Israel, that she doesn't feel like she has to pledge allegiance to a foreign country in order to do her job as a congresswoman, referring to Israel as the foreign country. You can agree or disagree with her assertion that being a pro-Israel politician, to the extent, and pro-Israel doesn't just mean, so someone can be a pro-France politician, meaning that they believe that France should be able to exist and that French people should be able to exist there. But pro-Israel in the common vernacular that we use, in the common nomenclature that we use it now, means that you support the U.S. taxpayer being robbed to give billions of dollars a year to the state of Israel, the secular state of Israel that was founded by Marxists, and also supporting lots of friends I'm going to make. Also supporting, sending our loved ones to kill and die in foreign military interventions and exercises that largely benefit the government of Israel, and that if you want to disagree that amounts to pledging allegiance to a foreign country, which Israel is a foreign country. I got into that debate with someone who said, no, Israel is our only ally and the only democracy in the Middle East, which they're not. And also, they also are, the Bible says to support Israel, which it says to support biblical Israel, not the secular state of Israel that was founded by Marxists. But it's still a foreign country. So if you say allegiance to foreign country, that's actually factually correct. But even if you disagree with that, that's not anti-Semitism. She didn't say, I don't like Jews. Jews are bad. Jews are liars. She didn't even say, I don't think Jews should live in Israel and I'm against Jews being in Israel and they should all die. She didn't actually say anything anti-Semitic. She said definitely anti-Israel things, but that's not anti-Semitism. And you can vociferously disagree with her on that if you want to. I vociferously disagree with her on a lot of things. And I think more than likely she gives a double standard when it comes to Hamas and the PLO and other bad actors in that region. But that's her prerogative to do that. That's also not anti-Semitism. And when we are constantly saying that something is anti-Semitism because it involves a Jew at some point and we're criticizing them, that's no different than all the flack that we got every time that we would criticize something Obama did, and they go, oh, you're just saying that because he's black or you're a racist. It's the exact same thing. So cut it out. Damn it.
And real quick to answer a question from the comments, it's not that we won't impeach somebody on we don't convict our politicians. It's that they will never go to jail for what they've done in office.
Ever. No.
Ever.
And they're not even going to be removed. There's never been a president. There have been, two presidents that have been impeached.
Andrew Johnson and Andrew Johnson, he deserved it. And Bill Clinton, who did not.
And Bill Clinton. And neither one were convicted. Right. So, no one's ever been convicted. And all conviction means in impeachment proceedings is that they're removed from office. Now, the Department of Justice can then decide if they want to prosecute or whatever, and they don't. But the worst that Clinton got was he was censured and reelected. And he
wasn't reelected. That was wasn't that after his election? I think that was in 97 or 98. But the Democrats cleaned up.
Oh, you're right. No, it was 98, December 1998. So he got censured and George Bush got elected instead of Al Gore, but that would have happened anyway. If anything, Al Gore was made to look sympathetic because of that. There was no real consequence as a result of that. So will they go through, like I said, and we said this, they'll be dragged over the coals of public opinion, and they may even get some investigations, which is essentially all an impeachment is. But they're not actually going to have any real consequence of any real import happen to them. The worst possible thing that's going to happen to them is they don't get elected, unless, like Matt said, they are doing something egregious that has nothing to do with the course of their politics, or if they're doing something like they're taking bribes, something outright like that. But any of this stuff where they're violating these bylaws and regulations, that stuff's for us. That's not for them. They can do what they want.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's also not anti-Semitism.
Right. I'm really glad I took out the Mike Beebe stuff today.
Because what?
Beebe, the Netanyahu, Ben. I don't know why I called him Mike. Mike Beebe. He's a basketball player, I think. Benjamin Netanyahu.
That he got that they're gonna indict him or whatever.
Yeah,
I haven't even followed that.
Yeah.
I don't like.
It's on bribery charges. Yeah, I was like, I started putting the notes.
I guess the prosecutors are anti-Semitic.
Right. I started putting the notes in on it, and then I saw what you added, and I went, nope.
All I would say over and over again is those damn anti-Semites.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's just so stupid. Like, if she were saying Israel is bad, Hamas is good, we need to drive the Jews into the sea, or the Jews are crafty liar. She's not saying that. She is a Muslim who, from what I can tell, has a particular beef with Israel, because as a Muslim, Muslims believe that what they call the Levant, the Holy Land, belongs properly in Islamic hands. Okay, that's not anti-Semitism.
Yep.
So there.
So what do you got going on this week?
Hey, so tomorrow, on Wednesday on My Fellow Americans, I am interviewing Jake Dorsch, who is a real up-and-comer in the liberty movement. He's like, I think 20, and he's already like done all this stuff. Kind of made me feel like a schlub or whatever. And he's it's like watching North. And he's a co-author of a book called Igniting Liberty, which is a very popular libertarian book on Amazon right now. It's free with a Kindle Unlimited account. I found that out when I downloaded it for free with my Kindle Unlimited account. And it's a really good read. And he's also a contributor on Being Libertarian. And he started the Young Americans for Liberty chapter in his campus at Drake University. I'm really looking forward to having him on. And so we're going to talk about his activism and his book. And then on Thursday,
for the writer's block, I am going to be having on libertarian presidential hopeful. I was about to say Mr., but I don't want to like misgender him. Misgender the person. Daniel Berman. Berman is going to be coming on and talking to me about some of his policies, and one of which is to legalize pineapple pizza, and I am 100% on board.
Is there a threat to pineapple pizza? Because I'm not a fan, but I will fight to the death for the right of someone to do that.
Yeah, I may not like what you put in your mouth, but I will die for you to have the right to put it there.
Yes, correct.
Right.
So good. So that'll be good. And then on Friday, Jason Lyon, our newest addition, the newest 33% of Muddy Waters Media, is going to have his show, Mr. America, The Bearded Truth, where he'll be talking about his take on current events. And then have a great weekend.
2 days
following
off.
Monday. What's that?
2 days off.
2 days off you get with Muddied Waters. And then on Monday, so Jason's going to be bookending our week. So on Monday and Friday will be the Mr. America, The Bearded Truth. And then join us again on next Tuesday, right here, right a week from now, for the Muddied Waters of Freedom, where Matt and I will be parsing through the week's events for you, our lovely viewing audience.
Yep. I was trying to figure out if we wanted to say Jason was bookending the week, or bookending our week, or bookending your weekend.
I guess technically both of those are true.
Yeah, he's got like a Schrodinger's cat thing going on, where he's
Schrodinger's bookends.
Right.
We'll have to ask him how he wants to phrase that.
Right. I know he's gonna say week because it sounds more prestigious, I guess. Than
it definitely sounds. It makes more sense.
It makes a lot more sense
than saying that we're bookending the weekend.
Right.
Because it's like, so reductionism. He's booking the week.
Right.
Which is also true.
So
be sure to check that out.
Yeah, that's going to be good times.
Matt, if people are trying to find us on this internet here, are there places they can go to find us?
There happen to be a few places they can go to find us.
Oh, good.
You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/muddiedwatersofreedom, or you can find us on Instagram. If all you like is looking at memes and you don't want to be boggled down with other posts about very important political things that happen.
You just want to look at memes.
You just want to look at memes, or either that or a bunch of pictures of my face. You can find us on Instagram at Muddied Waters of Freedom, or you can find us on Twitter at muddied_waters, and you can find this episode as well as many of our others at youtube.com/muddiedwatersofreedom. youtube.com/muddiedwatersmedia. Or you can find this and every other episode at muddiedwatersofreedom.com.
Well, that is exciting. I'm glad to hear we're all over the internet.
We are all over the internet. I tried to get us a Tumblr just because. Why not? And I put in the date that we started the show. So December 4th of 2016.
And it said we were too young.
It said we were too young and has blackballed our email address.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah. So we'll have to set up a Pinterest.
Right.
I was a
2-year-old trying to set up a
and they blocked you.
Yeah.
That's kind of harsh for a 2-year-old to do that to them.
I know. But it's Tumblr, so I mean, I get it. You don't want a 2-year-old on Tumblr.
No, you definitely don't. Tumblr or Pornhub. So,
or 4chan.
So, guys, thank you so much for joining us. And be sure to check out all those things that we were talking about. Thank you again. We hope you have a great rest of your evening. And where we're going,
we don't need roads.
Wake up and see